Funding for Frontline is provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tonight on Frontline, the airline system is in trouble.
Baltimore's gate 17, straight down the hall.
Delays and cutthroat competition. And in 1987, the highest number of accidents in 13 years. It was a tough year for the airlines and the passengers.
Young man, our arrangements were to go into Ontario.
Right.
Tonight, your flight is canceled.
From the network of public television stations, a presentation of KCTS Seattle, WNET New York, WPBT Miami, WTVS Detroit, and WGBH Boston. This is Frontline with Judy Woodruff.
Good evening. Last year, nearly 40% of all Americans made at least one airline flight, a record. 1987 was also a year for other records in the airline industry. Record flights, record delays, record near collisions, and record complaints.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has just turned on the no smoking signs. Please check to see that your seatbelts are securely fastened and that all tray tables and seat backs are in their upright position.
It was a year of turmoil in the troubled national aviation system. A year in which millions of passengers languished in airports waiting for chronically delayed planes. Since deregulation in 1978, the airline system has been under tremendous expansion pressure.
17, straight down the hall.
What had been a gentlemanly, protected industry found itself in a competitive free-for-all. Ticket prices plummeted.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Flight 88 to Bermuda.
Delays were so bad last summer that the government began requiring the airlines to tell the public how often their planes didn't leave on time.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our flight attendants are here.
Denver's Stapleton Airport. Continental Flight 410 to Wichita is late. These passengers have been waiting 2 hours. Many have taken advantage of the new low fares. 10 years ago, they might have taken the bus. Now they can fly. But today, because of mechanical problems, Flight 410 isn't going anywhere. The passengers are told to line up again for another flight that leaves in an hour.
Are you informing these people voluntarily that they in fact are entitled to a snack coupon?
No, sir, I'm not.
But don't you think it would be a good idea if you did so?
Last summer, frustration with service led to record numbers of complaints. And more than worries about inconvenience, this summer a lot of people began wondering whether the new deregulated industry is as safe as it should be. Pilots and mechanics broke their unwritten code of silence and spoke publicly about airline safety. Dave Waybill was a pilot for Continental Airlines.
I had free passes with Continental for the 9 months I worked, and my wife and I refused to ride on them. And if that doesn't tell the public something, then they're looking at the wrong things.
It's unbelievable the amount of effort that the management will make to move the aircraft to the gates. And they don't care if you don't have the parts, they don't care if you can't fix it. Those things are covered up, penciled over, or just disregarded.
John King is a former Eastern mechanic who blew the whistle. Continental and Eastern say complaints from mechanics and pilots were caused by labor disputes. All the airlines strongly defend their safety record.
I can only tell you that I think our record speaks for itself. We carry 130,000 people daily, and I think we do that in an excellent manner, a very safe manner.
TWA 564, taxi in position, hold 17.
But others weren't so sure.
I'm saying it's unsafe today.
And Republican Congressman Guy Molinari from New York says the best example of that is an increase in what are called critical near mid-air collisions.
Critical near-mid-air collisions are those, by FAA's definition, where there's less than 100-foot separation between the two planes and neither plane has taken evasive action. They didn't crash because they didn't crash. We were lucky. They've doubled in the last 2 years. We have at least 2 near-mid-air collisions every day, and we have at least 1 critical near-mid-air collision every other day.
American 85 Heavy Regional Tower, cleared land runway 17 left, runway 17.
Last year, there were 1,056 near-mid-air collisions, 200 more than the year before. Critics say that reflects serious problems with the system that is supposed to keep the airplanes apart, the air traffic control system, a system which some say has been in trouble since President Reagan fired 11,000 Union air traffic controllers in 1981. Air traffic controllers, passengers, pilots, mechanics, congressmen, a chorus of worries about the safety of an overloaded system. A system that also had to deal with this. Denver, Colorado, November 15, 1987. "28 people died. By daylight, the grim facts. A Continental Airlines DC-9 tried to take off in a snowstorm. It rolled on its side, hit the ground, and broke in half. U.S. Airlines had their highest number of accidents in 13 years in 1987. Accidents, cutthroat competition, the threat of more government intervention. It was a tough year for the airlines and the passengers. The fears and frustrations bred by the turbulence in the airline industry may have given birth to new determination to fix the problem. But how do we fix it? To understand what is really happening inside our overloaded aviation system, Frontline tonight goes inside the world's busiest airport, Atlanta's Hartsfield International. Our program is called Your Flight is Canceled. It was produced by Robert Drew.
An empty sky. But appearances deceive. This airplane is not alone. The sky around it, in fact, is crammed to its limits with other aircraft, most of them unseen by one another, and flying so fast that the miles between them can vanish in seconds. These airliners are loaded with passengers who have recently endured a plague of flight delays and cancellations and have been bombarded with fearful news of close calls and near misses. These are not near misses, but aircraft side by side on approach to the busiest airport in the world. We are about to arrive at that airport for a look behind the scenes of the airline counters and control tower and air traffic control center, and what these can tell us about the problems and perils of the U.S. air travel system. This is Hartsfield Airport, Atlanta, Georgia. In 1987, it surpassed Chicago's O'Hare as the busiest airport in the world. It is the headquarters of Delta Airlines and a major hub for both Delta and Eastern. Endless. That is what the ticket counter appears to be at Hartsfield Airport. And so do its tunnels. The runways, 4 of them, give the airport its enormous capacity, but also set its limits. The concourses are designed to allow waves of airliners to move quickly in and out. But in mid-1987, the airport has one of the worst records for delays. The Department of Transportation blames the airlines for scheduling too many flights at the same time. The airlines blame the FAA air traffic control system. Passengers blame the airlines. Passengers arriving at the world's busiest airport can be in for a surprise. The world's busiest airport often looks like anything but. Hartsfield appears nearly empty now because it is a hub airport for airline hub-and-spoke operations. The airlines have just sent waves of aircraft off to spoke airports across the country. Later, aircraft will return to Atlanta, again in waves, to exchange passengers for hundreds of destinations. But for the moment, those aircraft are elsewhere. This is a radar view of the thousands of square miles of airspace controlled by Atlanta Center. These are the airplanes flying across that airspace, and fleets of them are headed for Atlanta Airport. The Atlanta Air Traffic Control Center. 400 controllers work round-the-clock shifts to try to prevent collisions between hundreds of aircraft they see as dots on radar screens.
Eastern 102 additional traffic's passing 12 to 1 o'clock and 7 miles southbound at 310.
Eastern 264, the KC-10's off your right side now, making a left turn coming back to the west, sir. Higher when I've got 5 miles on.
Delta 452, verify your indicated speed. All right, so reduce speed to 310.
Aircraft under control are marked by data blocks listing their altitudes. Those without blocks are aircraft not in touch with center, altitudes unknown. Preventing collisions between these two kinds of flights is tricky business for controller Susan Thompson and for the pilots she directs.
They're all scared. I'm sure that, and I don't blame them. I would be too. It scares me to sit there and watch 2 targets, a VFR, that I'm not talking to, and an IFR that I am. Even though I've called the traffic and he's looking for them, when those targets merge on the scope, my heart stops a little bit until I see them separate, and I keep asking him, you don't see him? Do you see him? And, sometimes they'll say, no, I never did see him.
Controller Mike Dehan is directing a stream of aircraft from the northeast, upper right, toward Hartsfield Airport at lower left. The controller may hold thousands of lives in his hands, but most controllers believe it is better that they do not visualize the passengers or even the plane behind the dot on the radar.
It's just a dot. You don't visually see an airplane. You don't visually see 220 people. I don't know of anybody who even thinks about that. You see an airplane and you see the 5-mile boundary that exists around that airplane. And the object is don't let anybody touch that 5-mile boundary.
To help him visualize the boundary, the controller can ask the computer to display a 5-mile circle around the airplane.
If you infringe on that 5 miles, the machine goes off, you have a conflict alert, and you're removed from the position. And they do a big study on just why it happened.
Well, I'm going to have to stop this Eastern, and we're going to be doing a whole lot of paperwork here in a minute. Eastern 209, change your altitude, maintain flight level 200. I think if somebody thought of it as being a bunch of people up there, and if they made a mistake, they're going to kill a bunch of people, they're not going to last in the job. They're out the door.
There is the pressure of knowing that there's a lot of people out there. And I don't think any of us sits around and thinks, there's 300 or 400 people on this plane, and if I mess up, I may kill them all. I don't think you really could do this job and constantly think about that.
There's people in those airplanes, you know. Excuse me, we know there's people in the airplanes, but you can't be thinking, and this DC-9's got 117. You really think in the abstract, and you only think, you know, you just think of a turn Eastern, turn Delta, and you know, climb US Air, and that's the way it becomes a kind of a screen and one of these computer game type of things.
It's a video game display with a voice attached to it that's coming across in your radio, and you don't think about all the people. But it's, I say a game, it's a game you can't lose. It's a game you always have to win.
Whoa, who was that?
That's the one on the end.
All right, 498, I think that's it. Where is he?
2.
Who is he?
Right there.
Right there. Let's put him right behind 675 and in front of 709.
Controller Dehan has inserted aircraft 498 into a stream of aircraft crossing his sector.
Speak to me, Captain. Delta 498, Atlanta.
Speak to me, Captain. Translation. The aircraft is not responding to the controller's radio calls.
3012. Lanier O'Brien.
John, see if you got Delta 498.
Okay,
When a controller cannot talk to an airplane, he is not in control.
You got him, Mike?
Delta 498, Delta 498, Atlanta, how do you hear me?
498 is moving in the direction of a 5-mile boundary.
I tried R39, but I didn't get much answer from them.
Yeah, remind the R side to try Delta 498 again. Okay, thanks.
I really would like to speak to him.
I really would like to speak to him.
There he is. Delta 498, descend and maintain flight level 240, say heading.
The airplane is back in contact. The controller is back in control. He turns the aircraft, and the line of dots flows toward Atlanta. Controllers in the FAA tower oversee takeoffs and landings. They try to minimize dangers of collisions, but maximize the rate at which aircraft arrive and depart, a task managed by FAA's Harry McIntyre.
It's without a doubt, in my view, the most efficient airport in the world. While our capacity is very high, our demand is high, and many times higher than the capacity, and that's why we run into delays. We also lead the nation, or nearly lead the nation in delays.
McIntyre and the FAA may be blamed for air traffic delays even when they are caused by weather or overscheduling of aircraft into Atlanta. Harry McIntyre's performance is judged by the number of landings and takeoffs he can safely manage per hour.
We typically land 85 airplanes an hour during good weather. Well, if we have 100 airplanes scheduled for that hour, 15 are going to get delayed. Now, is that an air traffic delay? I say no. That is a demand exceeding capacity delay. I mean, really, specifically, that's what it is. In practical terms, it's a scheduling delay. It's a built-in delay. When people know what the capacity is and purposely schedule flights beyond what it can handle. They're saying, in my mind, I'm willing to accept the delay for the benefits I'll get for scheduling having that kind of a flight time.
The airlines are being accused by the Department of Transportation of scheduling too many flights at the same time. This is Delta headquarters at Hartsfield.
Obviously, everybody is going to try to schedule to haul the customer from A to B in the time he wants to go, which is why you have airplanes all leaving at the same time, because customers want to go at these certain times, and or they have to connect at the various pickup points like Atlanta, the hub. That kind of tends to ruin on time, because if you're going to have hub and spoke, you've got to wait for the people to get there.
In mid-1987, Hartsfield ranked near the bottom of a list of 27 major airports for flight delays. The airlines were being faulted for delays and cancellations. This is Eastern Airlines ramp, the Eastern Tower. Agent Steve Peel. His job is to help make hard decisions about canceling flights.
Oh, my God almighty. 14 and 190, huh? Phyllis, what is this? Boy. Delta 811, you're cleared on the right side to A2.
Thank you, sir.
At the Delta Tower, the fleet is nearly in with its wave of passengers. The waves of passengers washing through the corridors make Hartsfield the busiest terminal of a U.S. air travel system that, for all its problems, remains the most efficient in the world. Last year, U.S. Airlines carried the equivalent of the entire population of the country from coast to coast, round trip, at the lowest cost per mile in history. 70% of these passengers are looking to find a flight to another destination.
Mobile is
flight information.
A16. Yes, sir. Flight information.
Gates are arranged so that many find their next flight just across the hall. But when a flight fails to arrive on time, it can throw off the synchronization required for a hub and spoke to work well.
Baker South, Ben Taylor, 600. Ben, we got a passenger complaint at the B counter. Could you answer it? Some passenger over on the B concourse wanting to complain about a canceled flight. So that one only had 25 people on it, and he's one of the 25, and he wants to complain. So we'll get him somebody to complain to. When you have a mechanical problem with an airplane now, 4 years ago, we usually had one going without hardly anybody on it someplace that you could cancel and never miss a lick. And now, with the lower fares, most everything we have is running, if not full, near full. So, in that respect, it makes it harder to find an airplane to cancel that's going to cause you not much damage.
Delayed until 8:08.
Hey, Joe. Joe. Only one of us can get on that flight. They got you booked on it, and me not.
I'll take the Delta later one. You go ahead and take that other one.
Out to Vegas?
Piedmont got you in late.
Well, no, Delta. I came in on Delta.
Okay, now you're going to Greenville?
Greenville, Spartanburg.
Okay. The last two flights have been canceled to Greenville because of weather problems, weather-related problems.
I'm giving you an option.
Young man, Our arrangements were to go into Ontario.
Right.
And I want to go into Ontario.
Okay, well,
I have a mother who's dying, and I want to go into Ontario.
I'm going to get you into Ontario, connecting in LA or connecting in Dallas into Ontario, which is where we're supposed to go.
And Delta is going to call my family and tell them not to come and get me. And Delta is going to make, if my mother should die in the time difference, you're all going to take the responsibility?
I'm sorry, my brother's funeral is at 2 o'clock.
Because I'm going to a wake, so I would like to get there as soon as I can.
Okay.
And I have a dog and a cat on that plane.
Okay.
I'm quite disturbed. But I'm worried about the animals.
Usually it's my option where we cancel a flight to. And we call Miami and they'll say, well, we don't have a spare airplane just sitting around like most airlines don't. We need to cancel something. What would you like to cancel? Then I get in my little gate sheet here and I say, oh boy, here's one.
Continuation on those way. 703 to Kansas City rows 1 through 4, 10 through 27.
Ram 125 to push from Alpha 17 with a south 2.
125 tail north, clear to push. All right, Delta 705, you traffic southbound 757. After him, you go tail south.
After the 75 passes tail south, 705.
Delta 616, clear to push tail south.
Delta 616.
125, Ram.
Yeah, Ram 125. We stopped for a second. One of the passengers said he saw the baggage folks drive off with his bag, and he sure it was his, so we're trying to track that bag down real quick.
Okay. A passenger thought he saw one of the bag tug drivers driving away with his bag in the bag cart. 9 million Samsonites out there, gray, you know.
The airlines are pursuing schedules, dollars, and passengers in a fierce competition set off when Congress deregulated the business in 1978.
The public has responded to deregulation. The airlines have added additional flights, and that means that things are getting more crowded. The air traffic control system, though, has not grown. So the air traffic control system was causing delays.
The FAA denied the airlines' charges, and the Department of Transportation pressed the airlines to reduce their schedules in peak periods. Delta and Eastern agreed to negotiate new schedules. The airlines, in turn, urged the FAA to modernize, and particularly to rebuild its workforce of controllers to the levels of 1981. That is when the ranks of controllers were cut down, fired after a strike was called by their union, PATCO.
It really all goes back to the PATCO strike. The system was this big prior to the PATCO strike, and after the strike, the air traffic control system shrunk down to this big. We feel like they've had the capability to get it back out to here again, but they've only come part way.
The air traffic control system, simply by the fact that it was not able to meet the demands of all those additional flights, it was imposing delays. It could be a beautiful day in Atlanta, and you would be parked at the gate waiting to get clearance to take off, simply because the air traffic control system has not stayed modern. It's still using 20-year-old computers. Our airplanes have for 10 years had computer technology that would permit a greatly increased expansion of air routes up in the air. Right now, we're really flying nothing but a 2-lane road up there in the sky.
As the departing wave of airliners disappears into the overcast, it emerges on radar in a succession of radar control systems. The flights pass from the field radar of the tower onto the larger radar displays of departure control, located in the base of the tower. 40 miles out, departure hands the flights off to Atlanta Center, which will direct streams of aircraft to intersections in the sky, Spartanburg, Knoxville, Salem, and to the borders of adjoining centers, Memphis, Washington, Jacksonville.
You have the floor, right? Okay, well, at this time we have a cold front which is pushing eastward across extreme northern Alabama and eastern Tennessee on up into eastern Kentucky. It is activating some widely scattered thunderstorms, level 4 to 5 intensity. The most prominent cells out ahead of that front are just about over the Knoxville area.
A weather briefing for the supervisors of Atlanta Center and Center Air Traffic Manager Carlisle Cook.
Now, we do have less controllers than we had before the strike, and we do have more traffic, and that's something that we see aired constantly in the media. But we've got a situation too where we do have different traffic flows, and we are requiring our controllers to work a more productive work week than we did before the strike.
All right, this is over Knoxville, Tennessee. It's what we call a burn sector, and probably one of the most complex sectors we have in this building.
The controller of the airspace over Knoxville finds streams of aircraft converging from many directions.
This burn point out north of Atlanta, Delta 890 climbing direct down. Yes, good. Delta 890 climbing, maintain flight level 330. Correction, Delta 890 heavy climbing, maintain flight level 310. The north departure sector is my least favorite, and I make myself work it so that I don't develop the habit of staying away from it and then not be able to work it later. You've got traffic departing Atlanta, climbing northbound, all right, wanting 33, 37, whatever, and they're going to points north. And off of Nashville, going eastbound, also climbing. Off of Cincinnati and Louisville, Kentucky, and Lexington, climbing southbound. And departures off of Charlotte, North Carolina, going out west, so they're climbing westbound. And all of these aircraft are transitioning in a climbing status, and they're all meeting over Knoxville. You just take the ones off of Cincinnati and try to turn them behind the ones that are climbing eastbound, and you have to swap them out with the Atlanta ones because there really isn't any way to turn the Atlanta ones. And then the Charlotte ones, you kind of try to turn behind the Atlanta departures, and then in front of the Cincinnati departures. It turns into just a mess quickly.
We have to delay the traffic to be able to accommodate the number of airplanes that are flying through the Knoxville area. And we have to delay aircraft to be able to keep the system safe and not overextend the controller's ability.
It used to be when everything was like in a non-radar configuration, and the amount of traffic was a lot less than it is today. You'd have 3 or 4 minutes to think of some type of a non-radar rule to provide separation. Here, you got 800-900 miles an hour rate of closure, and you got to think to the imminent situations, and maybe one, that's what makes the real good controllers, and 1 or 2, if I stop him here, I may want to stop him rather than 28, stop him at 27 because I'm going to have problems with this other guy at 28. And it kind of goes with, helps to think fast and be able to talk relatively fast, but it kind of goes with the sector itself. And this is a tough sector.
He's going out to join him. They're going to go ahead and clear him to the block, so we're either going to have to turn them out. He's going to start making a left turn, so they'll join.
They're going to join up and then come this way over Chattanooga?
A sudden challenge. An Air Force tanker is making its appearance in Susan's airspace without a flight plan, but with a request. It wants permission to fly through the airspace in formation with another tanker, while 4 fighter planes, F-4s, join them to refuel. Susan Thompson is working to thread the military craft through the busy civil air traffic.
Eastern 378, the air refueling is now at 12 o'clock and 10 miles eastbound. Higher as soon as I've got 5 on the backside. Delta 1003, turn right heading of 355, sir, vector for refueling track. Delta 1003, they're off your left side, sir, about 50 miles, about to join up. The KC-10, KC-135, and 4 F4s joining up in a block of 25 to 27, heading over Chattanooga direct Spartanburg. Shorn 87 heavy in flight contact Atlanta Center on 125.902, uniform 236.7.
The blinking number signals success. Susan Thompson has kept traffic separated. Now the military craft are leaving her sector.
If you get more than 6 hours on the boards and you've got pretty steady, heavy traffic, you're taxed, to say the least. And it's different. There's a big difference between working light traffic for 2.5 hours or 3 hours on a sector and then sitting down working a sector that's full of weather and you've got airplanes stacked to the sky in a holding pattern and you're having to just stare a hole in the scope with concentration. And you spend 30 to 45 minutes on a sector like that and you're burned.
You can have 1 or 2 situations within 10 minutes after you sat down that might just totally wear you out and wipe you out, and you may need to go regroup and take a few minutes off.
There's been a few suicides around the center. There's been a lot of alcoholism. There's chain smokers. There's been several heart attacks and a lot of ulcers. There's a lot of ulcers in the job.
I don't sit and brood about it for days like I used to, you know. I mean, I would just hold it inside of me for up to a week, you know, just wondering what I should have done, what I could have done, you know, and I was just making myself sick, really.
Before the strike, a controller was working a 4-hour day out of 8. Now we're working somewhere around 6 hours out of 8. And I don't think that's a ridiculous thing for us to ask of our workforce, to spend a 6-hour productive day out of 8 working aircraft.
For controllers, the sky is full of wild cards. Unpredictable weather, unpredictable traffic, unpredictable equipment. Over Knoxville, for instance, the FAA's navigational equipment, there to help pilots find precise directions, can often lead them temporarily off course.
This navigate to Knoxville vortex is notoriously lousy, and airplanes going from Atlanta to Knoxville always get 15 or 20 degrees off to the right unless we correct them. It has to be the FAA equipment at Knoxville because every airplane does it.
Controllers make all decisions based on where radar shows their aircraft to be, but where the target appears is not always where the plane really is.
Right now, the computer is telling me where that airplane is based on a radar site that might be at Aiken, South Carolina, or Lynchburg, or Dobbins. And 1 minute it might get us information from Dobbins, the next minute it might get it from Aiken, and the next minute from Lynchburg, so the target jumps around. And, that's one of the reasons we have to use 5-mile separation, because we don't really know that accurately where the airplane is.
Hey, Rick.
Barry, this is Bill Morgan in Atlanta. We have lost our frequencies down here. Just about, well, on Blue Ridge. We got that combined on Burn right now. Yeah, that's working. But we may have some airplanes going to you that we cannot get to your frequency.
Carlisle, we just had a massive frequency outage.
Carlisle, we just had a massive frequency outage downstairs. We've been trying to bring it up for about 2 minutes. We're wiped out. Area 3, part of Area 6, and Area 7.
I'm going to stop everything on the ground at Knoxville.
More than half of the center radio frequencies, some 40 channels between controllers and pilots, have ceased to work.
This is the first time I've ever seen this happen. And I've been in the business for a long time, so this is a very unusual occurrence. It's one of the worst things that can happen to us is to lose our radio frequencies. We'd rather lose our radar than lose our radios because, you know, we can revert to other kinds of separation when we lose our radar, but when we lose our radio and we can't talk to the airplanes, then it's very difficult to exercise any control over them.
As you realize, all these airplanes are coming toward just one fix here. You know, they're all heading in the same direction, and they're all going to meet right here.
We have a primary, a secondary, and a backup system, and they all three went out in this particular case. And then one of the systems came up pretty quick after that. And of course, we have other ways that we can go back and talk to the airplanes through getting other facilities to talk to them for us.
The problem, a short in a telephone cable and blown fuses. It was 17 minutes before controllers got back all 40 radio channels.
When we lost our radio frequencies, we stopped all departures and all airplanes coming from Memphis Center's area into ours. So now they've lost their computers, so they've turned around and did sort of the same thing to us. We're now holding all departures off of Atlanta, going into Memphis Center's airspace.
Attention all aircraft, this frequency, Kansas City convective, SIGMET 3 Eastern. A line of thunderstorms 40 miles wide, moving from 250 at 25.
Hello, where's he going? I bet he's coming around this weather. Weather, you don't control the airplanes, you referee. You get them vertically separated. The pilot is going to go exactly where he wants to go. He is not going to put his airplane into a thunderstorm. No matter what you say, he's not going into a thunderstorm.
A September afternoon, 1987. 200 planes carrying more than 20,000 passengers are entering the Atlanta Center's airspace, and 70 airplanes are preparing to depart Hartsfield Field.
Area of thunderstorms moving from 260 at 20 knots, tops above flight level 430.
Somewhere up here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just check, man.
East 660 at the middle marker, turn left to heading 19027 right, clear for takeoff.
I might be going to about a 315 heading with a lot of these to avoid that anvil head out there.
It's going to get us.
It is.
It's going to be that one's going to get us.
You see that large cell now has changed its whole direction. It's moving due east. It's just a real guessing game to try to figure out what they're going to do.
If they fly west, he said they're having to go about 100 miles before they can turn north. And if they go east, they're having to go south of Atlanta and then east and then north. So the best thing to do is hold them for a while.
Eastern 682, ground.
All right, Eastern 682.
All right, you're number 1 at 4 north.
Sir.
All right, there's traffic inbound for ramp 4 at this time, and I'll try and get you out onto the taxiway. And everybody that's holding out there is going to be in front of you.
Oh. 254 is number 1 at 2 north.
254, roger. You hold.
Any further guess on the release for north departures?
I have no idea.
Okay. North departures being held in?
Yeah, the center has us all shut off.
These guys could be indefinitely delayed because that weather area out there to the west could conceivably stay there for an hour or two. So, you know, these guys sitting here, they're going to miss their connections.
just curious, we've got about another 45 minutes of fuel before we're going to have to taxi back. Does that look feasible for us to get out in that time?
That looks very doubtful to me.
Okay, thank you.
We're looking at, what, an hour delay for the guys in the tail end?
Well, I'll tell you, we're just trying to do what we can up here. If you saw what it's kind of chaotic up here also.
It seems like heck to wait for an hour and a half out here, then have to go back for fuel.
Yeah, I've waited out there in one of your planes before. I know the feeling.
Is he trapped out there?
He's trapped.
We got 14, 15, we got 17 North airplanes out there right now that have been delayed for I don't know how long.
Eastern 137, Atlanta. The wind is 33015, peak gust 26, clear to land runway 26 right. The wind shear sensor for your runway is out of service.
Not the best time for wind shear equipment to be out. Thunderstorms are the prime generators of wind shear, a phenomenon blamed for a number of crashes by airliners taking off or landing in the vicinity of storms.
We're shut down. For all practical purposes, we're shut down for a while. Test north, 360, climb to 10.
360 to 10.
Test north. A call comes from Atlanta Center authorizing the tower to send one aircraft to test a route north and west of the field. The pilot of the airliner waiting at the end of the runway is about to be asked if he wants to try the route.
The center has agreed to let us move one north departure out and try the route. You want to be the one to go or you want me to hunt somebody else?
The pilot volunteers.
Okay, crank them up. Let me know when you're ready.
But it looks like we do have that gap. If we could share it with the arrivals and departures, that'd be great.
Radar indicates a gap between two storm cells. If one aircraft is able to fly through the gap safely, Center might be able to launch a whole fleet behind it.
Okay, we'll see what happens here.
A way was found through the storms, but the effects of the storm were costly. 134 flights were delayed on the ground at Hartsfield. 35 flights were obliged to fly holding patterns in the night sky. 24 were held at other airports, and delays reverberated through most of the U.S. air traffic system. After one of the worst summers for thunderstorms and one of the worst on-time records among major airports, fall brought Hartsfield sunny weather, and in October the airport had the best on-time performance in the nation. Delta and Eastern helped reduce delays by spacing out flights in peak periods. But demands on the system continued to grow, and so did the call for solutions to its fundamental problems.
We need more capacity in the skies, and this can only be achieved with the necessary manpower, the necessary technical support equipment, the computers. You need to have, in many places, more concrete or more runways.
The airspace tends to get overloaded in certain areas versus the concrete at the airport. For us to be able to put more airplanes into the same amount of airspace, we're going to have to be able to increase our technology to be able to maybe reduce the separation standards required between airplanes.
Some new technologies are coming online. A new host computer that will improve processing of radar information. A sector suite control system that will help controllers in the 1990s. Neither will allow a controller to handle more aircraft. The technologies for long-range solutions are hardly in sight. But the FAA announced recently that it would reduce spacing between flights en route. Some controllers protested. People whose lives may depend on controllers from time to time might agree with the wish expressed by one airline official in Atlanta.
We need a commitment to modernize the system, to give those air traffic controllers the equipment that they need, get the additional personnel that are needed, get the full performance training controller out there working the system.
November brought Hartsfield more bad weather. On-time performance again dropped to the bottom. In December, 2 airliners on approach to the field were assigned to cross paths at the same altitude, a collision course, and a tower controller's error. The pilots saw and avoided each other. It was classified as a near miss.
Many at Hartsfield argue that the near collisions and the delays are symptoms of larger problems, problems of manpower, equipment, and government control. And how do we solve these larger problems? The airlines say take a hard look at the government. They say the Federal Aviation Administration has simply failed to keep its part of the deregulation bargain.
A promise was made to the airline industry and the American public in 1981 when the PATCO strike went out, and that promise has not been kept. That was a promise by the government that if the airlines supported the government and PATCO strike, the air traffic control system would be rebuilt, and it would be rebuilt quickly. It has not been rebuilt.
The airlines contend that 10 years after deregulation, the FAA still doesn't have a handle on the problem.
There are, I think, substantial indications we're slow in responding because we are the government. And there are a just unbelievable number of laws, regulations that inhibit quick movement and quick change. For example,
James Burnley is the new Secretary of Transportation. His agency has been under fire from the airlines and Congress. That's because the administration is sitting on billions of dollars collected from a ticket tax called the Aviation Trust Fund. That fund is supposed to pay for more controllers, more sophisticated computers, and more runway space. But the FAA isn't spending all the money. And many say that's so the Reagan administration can make the deficit look just slightly better.
We're charging the American people a ticket tax, and the American people expect it to be spent, not used to balance the deficit. And that's a serious problem.
Many argue that dramatic changes must take place at the FAA. They say if the Department of Transportation is too cumbersome, then the FAA should become an independent, more efficient agency. And some, including many in the Reagan administration, believe the best solution is what is known as privatization. The air traffic control system would no longer be in the hands of a government bureaucracy.
Now, one of these approaches would be to place air traffic operations in a separate, non-profit, user-owned corporation. It would take over all air traffic control facilities and equipment.
But most airline officials and even congressional conservatives won't go that far.
I'm very concerned that this administration, which places a high emphasis on privatization, as a conservative Republican, I think in generally we can, on the private side, do better than government can. But there are areas where I would tread very lightly, and this is one that concerns me very deeply. I think we ought to maintain the existing system, but beef it up where it needs to be.
And if that doesn't work, Congressman Molinari says he is even beginning to favor re-regulation.
I am indeed.
What kind?
I think we might have to go all the way back to complete re-regulation. However, I wouldn't advocate that as a first step.
But airline officials argue re-regulation will only hurt the consumer.
In 1978, 25% of the American public had flown. Today, 72% of the American public has flown. That is an incredible happening. Air transportation has gone from an elitist form of air transportation to something where the average individual can afford to fly. And that is a tremendous development for America.
All the participants in this issue agree about one thing. In order for more and more Americans to fly, new airports must be built.
We've got an awful lot of aluminum in the air and not enough space for it to land on.
But while there's agreement inside the aviation industry, there is potential trouble from the rest of the country. Largely because of community opposition, only one major new airport is under serious discussion anywhere in the country. So how will the problem be solved?
I think that greed conquers all often, and there is a lot of federal money that could be freed up to allow localities to plan and build airports.
Over the next 10 or 15 years, the country clearly needs to build more large airports, and if that does not happen in most of the major regions of the country, then I think it's very, very likely that will become the major constraint on the ability of the aviation system to function efficiently.
In the end, more runways and more airports in cities across the country may be the ultimate price we will be asked to pay for low ticket prices. The airline boom that has allowed more Americans to travel farther from home than ever before may soon come back to land in our own backyard. I'm Judy Woodruff. Good night.
Next week on Frontline, inside one of America's toughest prisons. 8 years ago, in a bloody riot at the penitentiary of New Mexico, 33 inmates were tortured and killed. Sweeping reforms since then were supposed to make things safe. But has prison reform gone too far?
We might as well give the keys to the inmates. They're running it anyway.
Watch Shakedown in Santa Fe on Frontline.
Frontline is produced for the Documentary Consortium by WGBH Boston, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Frontline was provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Educational organizations may inquire about videocassettes by calling 1-800-424-7963. For a transcript of this program, please send $4 to Frontline, Box 322, Boston, Massachusetts, 02134.